Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm James Mackenzie, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi there, this is James Mackenzie, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance, where our business is the success of your business. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your host of the Elevate Business podcast. The Elevate Business podcast is a journey of discovery fueled by the curiosity to genuinely understand what makes people tick when it comes to their professional path, choices made, and the personal characteristics that drive performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately success. The Elevate Business podcast is here to promote the enormous contributions of small and medium-sized businesses around the world by exploring the actions that make a workplace successful, the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of an organization, and how we build whole person performance from the ground up. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, growing our learning edges, and honoring our passions with a special guest who has elevated their business, overcome obstacles, and inspires others to do the same. So glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to episode number 12 of the Elevate Business podcast. Both myself, James Mackenzie, and Scott Rust are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to James Mackenzie, who is a public speaker, investor, business leader, and serial entrepreneur. James has over 25 years of industry experience in leadership, operations management. He is a recipient of the Ottawa Business Journal and Ottawa Chamber of Commerce 40 Under 40 Award for 2012. He is the co-founder of Purcolo and his most recent endeavor, CykoMetrix, which we look forward to learning more about today. Welcome, James.
Howdy.
Thank you for joining us today on the Elevate Business podcast. Can we start with telling us a little bit more about yourself and your company, along with your journey to get there?
Sure. Happy to talk about myself for at least a little bit. One thing you know about entrepreneurs is you get them talking about themselves. 3 hours later, they'll finally move on to something relevant. But I've been a serial entrepreneur for quite a while. Starting from a couple websites that I built with my brothers, and then building some independent businesses over the past 10 years. Founded or co-founded 5 multi-million-dollar businesses so far over the past decade, plus a couple more that we'll be talking about today. In addition, I'm a father of 8 kids, so a busy household. 4 boys, 4 girls. So if there's anyone who would like lessons in juggling, happy to oblige.
That's fantastic. And when you say juggling, that's the first thing that came up for me. How have you been able to manage the demands from a business perspective and then also from a home perspective? Because that's a huge thing for us these days.
It is. It takes a lot of discipline. And I mean, the things that people go through, especially right now with COVID, it takes our natural personality traits and puts them under a certain kind of stress or pressure. And what'll happen during that is sometimes people's traits get sharpened to a more refined degree. Sometimes that also exposes certain gaps in our capabilities and strengths. So as far as how my journey's gone through kind of we'll call it COVIDian times, like Jurassic Park, I find that it definitely puts a lot of pressure on time management and discipline. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea what an average day looks like for me, I'm up usually about 6:30 in the morning, start going through at least some of the high points of email that have come through so far, identifying and emails that need an immediate response, emails that I need to respond but can be responded sometime later in the morning, and ones that are more just lower priority, informative, or can be responded to later in the day or the week. Frankly, then I turn over to parental responsibilities. So I've gotten some of the easy stuff out of the way. Check CNN, check ESPN, making sure everything is right in the world. And then I start on a wake up schedule, helping some of the kids get up in the morning, making sandwiches, making sure people are eating their cereal and toast, whatever they need help with, getting snacks sorted out, and it's funny. The routine of getting out the door was easier last year. It's a little more harder this year because you're used to telling the kids, okay, make sure you're wearing clean underpants, you're wearing the right shoes, is your jacket on. And now you also have to remember, do you have your mask? Do you have both masks? Is it handy? Oh my gosh, we put it in the laundry. Where did we put it? So a little extra routine gets thrown in there. But by the time 7:30 rolls around, the first kid's already been taken out to the bus, and there are a couple more that are somewhere in the process of taking their shower, and a couple more, 20, 30 minutes behind them. Through that, around 7:30, I start being able to ease off most of the parentals because the youngest need the most help and the oldest are a lot more independent. So other than the normal, give them a hug, I love you, go have a great day. By the way, it's really cold out. I'm able to do a bit more work interspersed over the next hour in my office. By 9 o'clock, everyone's out of the house. And usually my schedule starts kicking up in high gear around then. I rely very heavily on my calendar. So when I have a formal meeting with someone, even an informal meeting, I absolutely make sure I have it in my calendar. And I do reminders that will come on my phone. I have a charger for my phone by my desk so I can keep it handy. And the reminders as they come in, make sure I know the various things that still need to be processed for the day. But it does mean a lot of changing of gears, for moving from the CEO position of one company to a COO position in another company to other activities, business development. Sometimes literally I'm going from extremely analytical, technical thinking, which requires a certain kind of thought pattern and comfort level, just dealing with intricacy and don't distract me. I'm in the middle of a train of thought and it took me half an hour to get here. So holy smokes, I hope I don't sneeze. Right out to the standard kind of business development, call with someone where it's social and, how are the kids and what are you doing? Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. Ha ha ha. And it's a completely different kind of interaction. It's much more emotive, much more empathy driven. Whereas the analytical thought is very much typically high cognitive thought, high train of thought, connecting of dots. So it definitely puts a challenge on that. One thing I've noticed is that this has put pressure on things like conscientiousness, and so I'm putting more attention to some of those details in a conversation where I may otherwise just not worry. Sure. You want me to do something? No problem. I get it. But right now, the pressure and the different distractions that can go on, I don't know what's going to happen in half an hour. I don't know if the doorbell's going to ring and the dog's going to go on a barking spree, or if we're going to get a call from school because someone has a runny nose and, oh my God, we have to run and pick them up just in case they have the plague. Or one of the kids working from home or doing school from home will have a question on math or something that they need help with. So being able to put the train of thoughts down on paper in a very, very quick form, I find invaluable right now, especially in some of those meetings where there's a lot of action-oriented work being planned out. So that's basically how I cope through the day, and that's one of the main lessons that I've learned and adaptations I've made over the past few months in being able to juggle that much work and business as well as family and other priorities.
That's fantastic. A couple things came up for me, but I'll kind of sit on my hands and ask one question at a time. So there's a lot of nuggets in
No
there,
problem.
James. Thank you for sharing. So I guess the first one for me is, what kind of made you, or what prompted or helped you get to the decision that you wanted to be a serial entrepreneur? Because it's not every day that our feet are planted on the floor and then we're like, I'm going to run a couple multi-million dollar businesses.
I think that people usually become serial entrepreneurs under two main paths. Either it's something they want to do, or something that they have to do. Um, my first real big company, I said, was Granite Networks over in Canada, Ontario.
Yes.
It was a large independent data center, the largest independent data center in Eastern Ontario. And that was something that I wanted to do for quite a while. Finally had an opportunity to kind of put the teeth into the meat, so to speak, and really get going on it. But there was an element of have to, and I certainly remember some of the pressures we had of, okay, we're going to do this data center. We have a runway of about 6 months. So we're going to have to get something going, and being conscious of how much progress we were making on the business while we were making progress on investment, and then also being aware of our own household progress on, okay, can we keep this up? Yeah, we can go a little bit longer, so we're still okay. But that was quite a juggling act for that first one. Since then, though, I've noticed that it has become more of a want to. After that business was bought by Rogers, it was acquired by Rogers in 2013. I had some friends that were involved in another business, and they were looking for some help and guidance as far as getting their business ready for investment, and could I join their board of directors? Could I help give them some consulting advice? And that turned into quite a big operation of helping to help the financials get properly developed and in the right shape, an investment deck, helping to curate the story, to understand clearly all the steps that were left. And that was a company called Rock Garden, and we were able to to raise quite a lot of money over the window that we had, and that I would say is probably another good success. But that was absolutely just helping out a friend and realizing, oh, this is something I didn't know I could do. I didn't think I was a serial entrepreneur. I didn't wake up one morning saying, I'm going to put my Superman underpants on and go fly around the house. It was really just a natural tendency, like dominoes. I had some experience with one company. I had a friend that needed some help, wanted to see if I could help out. So sure, I'm happy to help out. Anything I can do to help. And oh, wow, that's turning into a bigger opportunity than I thought. And so that natural kind of domino progression, I think, just happened. As it is right now, I tend to have built, as a serial entrepreneur, a portfolio of multiple companies in multiple stages. So there tend to be opportunities that are still early and take very little time, and they have a horizon of sometimes many months or even years before they're going to be blossoming into something that will be able to bear fruit. And meanwhile, other opportunities are already at that stage where they are bearing fruit and occupying time and presenting immediate opportunities. So there's kind of thinking of multiple trains going on train tracks at the same time.
Very interesting.
I'm curious, James, you just mentioned there about how there's some businesses that have a little bit of a longer horizon at the moment, and there's others that are kind of bearing fruit right now. So I'm curious, those that are actually bearing fruit right now, were those seeds planted years or months ago that, again, you had that kind of horizon that you were looking at, and now you just keep sowing the fields, for lack of a better analogy?
I talk often with my wife about this. We have a dog, an Australian Shepherd. And one thing that we try to do is go for a walk with the dog every night together. It's an opportunity to have some time to ourselves, have some time with a bit of quiet, physical exercise, and making sure that our bodies are in good shape is always good. And if you've ever played with an Australian Shepherd, they've got lots of energy. So you're going at a good pace on let's say a 6-kilometer walk. You're taking it over an hour. And we'll talk about these different kind of business opportunities. And as I kind of roll my mental clock back, I remember conversations with us and the dog that we've had 3 years ago, where some of the opportunities that I'm working on now just didn't exist. They weren't even a thought. Some that I'm working on now were just in their absolute burgeoning seed stage. And even then, early seed. And some of the opportunities I'm working on now were in that, this is actually developing, and, it's turning into a business. And so, we're putting effort in structuring that business and actually, bringing on customers. So it does take a lot of management, mental kind of space management, managing multiple streams of businesses concurrently through space and time. So, because one thing you don't want to end up is having multiple businesses needing 50% of your time at the same time, because that's a recipe for being overworked. Mental stress, especially now, is certainly heightened. So you can imagine there could be depression, anxiety going along with that, fear of failure, fear of commitment, and really letting down a team where you've made commitments to that I'm going to help do this, and realizing you need 10 hours a day for me. That other project also needs 10 hours a day for me. I'm stuck. So there does have to be a lot of personal discipline and responsibility to manage that in a healthy way. And I always thought of it as small, medium, large size projects. You can have a couple small things going on at a time that'll occupy an hour a month. You have a couple medium things going on at a time, but probably no more than 2. And that could be maybe an hour a week, or an hour or 2 a week. And then you'll have one main project that will be, several hours a day. And if you can keep that discipline to not over engage, and to make sure as you start to see this moving through time, recognizing, I think in 3 months' time, I'm going to be under engaged. So I want to start working on another seed and project. You can kind of keep that capacity at a reasonable level. And I think I've been able to do that so far with a degree of success. We've got some successful businesses that we've already worked on, personally and professionally, but still having the time to make the kinds of commitments to my family that I want to. I still read bedtime stories to the kids, to the younger group of kids every night. Still do the walks with the dog, and still get some pretty massive work commitments committed to and completed at the same time.
That sounds like great balance. And there were a few things that came out of that for me, specifically is, as an entrepreneur, managing internally is a huge reflection of what's going on externally. So can you tell us a little bit more, James, when it comes to managing your expectations around, fears or, failure or, expectations, or sometimes we all have those guilt cards. What is it for you that has been the influencers around building those muscles to ensure that you can show up as many different quote unquote characters in different pieces of your life? Yeah.
I think I may even point my finger at my kids on that, because I don't speak with work colleagues almost every hour of every day, or think of them every hour of every day. I do think of my kids every hour of every day. And our kids range from, I'll go through the ages real quick. And we always have birthdays, so we always have to remember who's how old. I got a 7-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 14, 16, 17, and 22. So they're all at different ages. And that means different kinds of engagement. Right. I mean, you do not treat a 22-year-old the way you treat a 7-year-old. No. You don't treat an 11-year-old the way you treat a 17-year-old. They require different things. There's boys, and boys tend to be a little more passive on their we'll call it broadly social networking, socialization side, more interested in competition and let's say gaming. The girls are much more strongly focused on their connections with others, their connections with their friends, and how they can continue to build those relationships even during these COVIDian times. So even across genders, there's different needs that they're going to have, and in the end, those needs, when you boil it down, when you concentrate it, they are the same. They need food, they need water, they need sleep, they need safety, they need Wi-Fi. I should have listed that one first. I think that's actually the top. But they need really all the same things, but it's being delivered in completely different ways. I've had some amazing heart-to-heart talks with some of the older kids in that group. And they'll happen at the weirdest times, like 2:00 in the morning. And, I'm just popping down because I thought I heard the noise in the kitchen. And, they're deciding that this is the ideal time to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Okay. And next thing you know, it's like, what are you doing? It's early in the morning. And it will turn into this hour-long, amazing sharing of thoughts and consciousness and feeling. And I'll go back to bed and I'll be tired. But I'll also think, holy crap, I kicked ass. That was an awesome kind of dad moment there. And then conversely, every night when I reach the kids and I get that, the kids are bouncing in and they each have to have their favorite pillow and their favorite spot. And, the dog usually comes in and jumps on the bed too. And that's a completely different kind of experience, but it's still a very, very strong connection. So I'm kind of practicing every day, and certainly every week, the different ways of relating to people. Mm-hmm. And as they're all in different stages, certainly there's a lot of pressure on making sure that we're still doing good parental jobs of, okay, well, to the 17-year-old, that's great that you're saving up some money. But don't forget, you have to save a certain amount. You have to think about long-term and short-term. You have your cell phone bill. So all those different things, how are you managing that? And that's a very, very practical conversation. And for another, maybe it's a conversation about their food and their diet, different structure of conversation, but the same way of practicing those skills. So when I go and think about my work day, I recognize that I'll have similar kinds of conversations. I'll have conversations where this is not a goal where I'm trying to accomplish something in a practical, specific, get this done way. This is very much the main work is done. It's completed. Now we need to take some time and celebrate that so that we can continue building the more empathetic side of ourselves. And in other ways, we can have very, very practical conversations around, okay, well, we have this objective. There are 5 roadblocks that we're going to have. But of those, is the third roadblock really something that we need to concern ourselves with now? From a technical perspective, no, we can push that off. Great. So I find having a more dynamic family helps prepare me for some of the dynamism required in work life, especially when some of these projects they range from ongoing concerns with revenue, customers, and very exciting future, all the way through to companies that are still in that incubator. This is an idea or a concept or even earlier. And there's all sorts of different kind of dynamics that you need to kind of get through all of them. But in the end, all the businesses still require the same thing. They require money. They require a plan. They require the skills, resources. So that family pattern gets mirrored in work. And I think it works. I think it works well that way.
It's definitely sounding like that. The other thing that came up earlier for me, James, is at what point did you figure out the dynamics in the sense of moving through critical tasks versus tasks that really demand decision-making or dominance, or the tasks that really need you to show up for the other person? What were your influencers throughout your career to kind of point to those mannerisms for you?
Oh boy. I think I'm not sure. I'll have to think this. This is a thinking exercise, I think.
No problem.
I mean, in principle, I think ultimately an individual needs a lot of flexibility and comfort in themselves that they're able to play both roles of, hey, we have 5 things to do today. I've done my 2. You have 2. What's going on with the 5th? Through to the very soft, encouraging, I can't believe how much fun we're having doing this together. And I'm so glad I'm working with you because I've never had these kinds of positive experiences before in my past. So you need to feel confident to let go of control and to sometimes let other people have control. Because ultimately, if you can't, you end up doing everything yourself. And if you're doing everything yourself, you're not a successful entrepreneur. You are a successful sole proprietor. So being able to feel confident that I can do stuff, I can help other people, and I have confidence in them and their skills. I think those are the skills that I think are probably crucial to feel like it's okay for the spotlight to turn on someone else. And that when it does turn on me, that I can handle it, whether it's to the very left-brained or very right-brained. So when I think about that in that context, and I think about some of the people in my life, I'd have to look at my mother and my father, certainly as role models. My mother was so absolutely one of the smartest women I've ever met. IQ got to be well above 145. One of the first women to take the Algonquin College Computer Science program when it was out. And I mean, I was like 10 years old, like 143. She kind of worked the math back. This was sometime in the 1600s. But, she was able to lead a family as a single mother with 5 kids and a whole lot of challenges, put herself through school, re-educate herself, go out for a job, kick ass, take names, and all these little moments where she would have to be more firm with the brothers because they were being pecker-nosed jerks, being softer on the girls because they were having a harder time, being more of a teacher with me because the computer was very new at the time, and this is when the internet didn't exist. Both BBSs was the only way that you could connect one computer to another. And I had what's called an acoustic coupled modem, where you take your phone and you stick it down into this cradle, and that's how your computer talked.
No Wi-Fi, James? Is that what we're really saying here?
No, it was lo-fi. It was like 2 cans and a piece of string. I mean, I remember this little game I wanted to download. It took 8 hours to download, and it was a game called Hack, and I think it was like 350 kilobytes. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, megabytes maybe, but it was very, very, very small, very old. It took all day, and I remember one day, 6.5 hours through, the phone rang, and having to everything's done. It destroyed the file, and having to start over next day. My mom had to go through all those different roles. She had to be very dynamic. She had to be a teacher one moment and a principal the next moment, and an encourager and hugger and holder the next. My father, similarly, I mean, he had a fascinating life where he was in the military. He got to literally be sent overseas with NATO, and got shot at with guns, and it was close enough that he actually walked over and picked up the bullet casing after, just to remember that moment that he was shot at and didn't die. And he had a different role where it was, because he was overseas, there was a lot more distance there. And so we had to build a different kind of relationship. There were a lot of lessons that he was trying to teach me, and I couldn't get them in my head because I was too young and I didn't understand what the lesson was. But as I started maturing, realizing that in some cases, not that the ends justify the means, but the ends are what matter. And you do need to do what it takes. His famous phrase was, eating is habit forming. So, when everything else fails, no matter how hip your product is, no matter how fast your software developer is, no matter how cool your marketing campaign is, in the end, eating is habit forming. So what does that mean to the bottom line? And what I learned is this lesson of every day, do one thing that moves a project along. If you have multiple projects, you're making it a bigger challenge. Every day, do one thing that moves each project along. And by just making those baby steps, if you can keep to that rhythm, you will have made between 20 and 30 steps forward on every single project. That could be something as small as writing up a little blog post and posting it on LinkedIn. It could be as simple as, I want to have one phone call with a networking person and see if I can kind of build a stronger network awareness of what we're doing. It could be a line of code. It could be an important email. It could be, try to get that one legal document ready for our investor meeting. So that's basically where the lessons I would say that I've learned them from. That's where I was kind of absorbing those lessons and who I absorbed them from. So I hope that answers your question in a longer way than expected.
No, I think that was great, James. And I wrote down many things I'd like to bring up, but I'll just stick to maybe one that's coming up for me. And I've noticed it with a lot of whether it be the business owners, entrepreneurs, or even the CEOs that we work with, is around this idea of letting go. And even if they're working in a team of, just 5, or they have a company of 30, just this idea around being able to let go of ownership of some of these things. And you mentioned the difference between a sole proprietor and an entrepreneur. If you were to provide maybe a little bit of guidance or advice on how somebody might be able to start making that shift, if they notice this is something they're struggling with, what might you be able to share with them? So
in principle, the lesson is you have to let go, because each individual is not perfect. I don't know everything. I can't do everything. I don't have 24 hours a day that I can do all elements of working. So it's an important thing that has to happen. The only way you can really build teamwork is through the establishment of trust in others, that others are able to have a similar ability to execute and contribute. And when you can't let go, you're actually blocking them. You can think of it kind of like, I've got a baseball kick right now. Let's think of it like baseball. You can have the best player in the world. You could have the best, Derek Jeter on shortstop, Ken Griffey Jr. In center field. But they could be so good that they could have some amazing players underneath them that get kind of caught in this log jam in the minor leagues. There's no point promoting this strong minor league player to the majors because, well, they play shortstop and Derek Jeter plays shortstop. So why are you going to have 2 shortstops on your team? So that is not how businesses work. We see a lot of sports and we think that way because we're exposed to it. But businesses work the exact opposite, where it's actually trying to find an ability to step aside and let the light shine on other people. And by doing that, I have a certain amount of luminosity, but now I'm letting the shine on other people as well. And they're generating luminosity. And as a result, we're making more lumens than we were before. So it increases the overall capacity of a company to do that. First thing that I try to do in a new team when we're kind of building and starting a project, when we're kind of learning about each other, is I do try to have some calls where we can have a quick task that I assign to each person. Something small, relatively easy, but the idea is it's a deliverable. And it's consciously assigning a deliverable to someone, even just as a peer. Like, this doesn't need to be, supervisor down to employee. This can be just amongst us people, us equals. Assign a deliverable, a little deliverable to each person. And the reason, what that's going to do is that's going to give them something to do. It's going to generate a reason to talk and to communicate, but it's also going to give them the ability to provide a reason for trust in themselves in others. Mm-hmm. It's going to give other people a reason to say, wow, they produce something. And psychologically speaking, that barrier that stops me from letting other people help is typically a lack of faith or a lack of trust in others. And giving myself the psychological reason to trust them and giving them the ability to demonstrate that that trust is deserved helps to break through that wall. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be as complex as, so we have this key investor, they want to invest $2 million in the business, go give them a call. So it doesn't need to be that complicated. It can be as simple as, so take our business and write out 3 words that you find describe us well, or write out a sentence that you think makes sense for us, or that kind of idea. What I found is in doing that, each of those individuals that were asked go from their position, because they are individuals too. They have their own thoughts and insecurities. And they're given something that they're able to contribute, which gives them a feeling of purpose, a feeling of power, and something they're able to give to others. And that increases their self-confidence. And the external people to that individual are seeing what they contributed, and they're able to derive confidence in that individual's capabilities as a result. So that's probably one trick that I've done a number of times that I think can be very successful in starting to build that. It's like anything. It's not, you don't build a spaceship in Lego with a single piece. It takes lots of building blocks. That's probably one of the first building blocks that can start moving through that trust experience. When
you say building blocks, James, where my mind goes to equate is learnings. So it sounds to me throughout this, you're applying learnings from family to the workplace, from the workplace to family. So what has been, I guess, is there, or what has been the biggest learning for you as a serial entrepreneur?
I did not think I was going to be a serial entrepreneur. And when I became a serial entrepreneur, it wasn't because I was necessarily trying to. I was just wondering if I could do something. And I wasn't trying to be CEO. It's just there's 3 of us, and that person's clearly the engineer, and that person's clearly the salesperson. Damn it, I guess that means me. What I learned is that there's a phrase that I remember seeing on those silly Facebook ads. Blankets that you would buy for your spouse, and I think about it often with my wife. We are each smarter than we think. We are each more capable than we think. We each are faster, are stronger, wiser than we give ourselves credit. And typically, we are also our own worst enemies. That socially, it is considered very unacceptable to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm pretty awesome. So we tend to be naturally more self-deprecating and harder on ourselves than external people would be. So I think what I learned is that, I'll be okay. This fear that you have in putting all your eggs in one basket, or feeling like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, it'll be okay. And the fear of juggling multiple projects and I don't know what I'm going to be working on tomorrow because there's so many things going on at the same time, I'll be okay. So trusting in our own abilities and trusting that when those talents are going to be called on, when I have to put on my math hat and look at financial models and spreadsheets, it'll be all right, that I'll be able to do it. When I have to put on my legal glasses and look through documents and write subscription agreements or shareholder agreement clauses, being reasonable and being able to put my thought into it, it'll be fine. And most importantly, when it comes to being able to develop a team, I can trust that I'll be able to have the kinds of conversations with those people that will be informative and positive and nurturing, to feel comfortable saying, yeah, this is how I can see this team working out. Mm-hmm. One of the projects I'm working on now, in fact, actually came out of another project where COVID has had impacts and delays on many people, and sometimes it's very, very hard when there's a banker in Peru that needs to meet with somebody in Brazil, and I'm sorry, that's not going to happen anytime for the next little while, because let's say those countries happen to be in lockdown, or the bank is in lockdown. The documents are in the bank, but you're not allowed to go sign them there because the bank's in lockdown. So you're going to have to wait 4 weeks. So all sorts of strange things have happened, even on the business side that way. And while that team was kind of in its stalled incubation, there were a number of us that put our heads together and said, hey, we could, we all recognize that eating is habit forming. We could probably put something together, and maybe we could come up with an idea, a project we can work on together while we continue waiting for that other project to unstall. And that's actually where CykoMetrix came from. Turns out one of the people who was going to be the super network expert happens to have a master's in mathematics. Oh, well, that's a nice little occurrence we wouldn't have recognized, wouldn't have realized. One of the other people happens to have a huge background in psychology and an amazing writer. One of the other people, huge success in his career when it comes to analytics, specifically data analytics around computers. And as we were toying around the idea, COVID and changing business requirements, it's all changing around people. COVID affects people. It doesn't actually affect businesses. It affects the people. But as a result, all this interesting stuff is around people. I wish there were some better ways of measuring people. And we looked and realized, we've done data analytics on computers before. We'll do data analytics on people. Okay. And, one of those dominoes just happened to knock over a whole bunch in succession. And that built CykoMetrix, this platform that's based on the aggregation of data, not just for individuals, but the only one that's actually aggregating individuals across teams for huge, complex data sets that can be extremely informative and now give people the power to say, holy smokes, we're doing we're doing an expansion. We need to bring on 3 people now to our team, but we have such a good culture and we don't want to screw up a good thing. So how can we find out who's a good fit? Now we can actually plug ourselves into that solution and help connect those dots, fill in that information gap that exists.
Exactly. And I can foresee, just putting on my HR cap here for a second, James, that, that really would lend itself very useful throughout any person's career, or the teams from that matter, from recruitment to performance to succession planning, the whole 9 yards. So that's wonderful that you've shared so many insights with us around the entrepreneurial and being so candid with the family and your learnings. We're really grateful for it. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Fantastic. And so for anybody who's interested in learning more about James and his co-founder businesses, we're going to put links on our social media LinkedIn page through Intuitive Performance and our website. Thank you very much for all of our subscribers to tuning in into another great episode of the Elevate Business podcast. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Elevate Business podcast. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can subscribe to future podcasts at intuitiveperformance.com, where you can also sign up for webinars and learn more about professional coaching and our facilitation solutions available to help fire up your whole person performance skills and drive actions for success. Until next time, stay true to you and take care of each other. We are all better together. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the whole person leadership cohort, by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.